There were certainly a lot of leftists that refused to endorse Kamala because of Gaza, which I think was, well, we saw how that played out. Gaza better off now?
I mean, yeah. It's not going to be, but it is at the moment.
My dude.
It literally is. Palestine's not going to exist by the end of this 4 terms, but I mean, right now it's better.
James, are you a leftist?
Yeah, what's up?
Oh, there he is.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. You're a leftist? Okay, great.
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about today?
Well, I just wanted to hop in because I was listening to a bit of your stream, and you're like, oh yeah, maybe the Democrats should have progressive policies that they run on. And
to be clear, hold on. To be clear, I've always said that, but go ahead.
Okay, well, I just thought it was interesting that you're like criticizing Bosch for saying the Democratic Party is dead, which I'm pretty sure he was like reading an article saying that the donors were bailing on the party because they didn't have like a clear message. And then you're also kind of, it seemed like, going after progressives, saying that the progressive policies, or at least the politicians, aren't popular. But if we look up the actual policies, they're popular. And then it was also funny how you're like saying that the politicians need to be elected so we can get the progressive policies rather than the politicians just running on popular policies to actually get elected.
Okay. Where do you want to start with this?
Like, well, I mean, do you kind of see what I mean when you said that you have to vote for the Democrats to get them elected, and then you can like yell at them to do progressive policies?
You have to
simply weren't elected.
You have to elect Democrats in large enough numbers that they actually have the ability to deliver sweeping federal legislation, which necessarily requires 60 votes in the Senate, or contrarily, at least 50 votes to scrap the filibuster. Both of those are tall orders.
Yeah.
My contention throughout like the Biden era was I kept hearing from leftists and progressives that popular policy alone is enough to get you over the finish line. The refrain that I heard more than anything else was like, all you have to do is address people's material conditions and you will be rewarded at the ballot box come election day. And my contention has always been that is not true. It's not just policy that gets you over the finish line, especially in this new era of new media and social media and propaganda and messaging. It takes a lot more than just, if it was just as simple as promising people free healthcare, then Bernie Sanders would have won in a landslide in both the 2016 and 2020 primaries. But it's not enough to promise progressive policy. And if you're serving in a district that, say, Trump won in 2024 and you're a Democrat, or if you're serving in a district that is very swingy and it kind of goes left and right and it's purple, then you're probably going to see a more moderate kind of candidate serving in those districts. Like, I don't think we should expect that someone like AOC, who champions really progressive policies, like that kind of a candidate is probably not going to do well in, like a purple district in Kentucky or whatever.
In Minnesota, the Democrats had the state Congress and state House by like a 51 vote to 49 vote, and they passed a ton of extremely popular policies.
So did Biden.
Or progressive policies.
So did Biden on a macro level. That's exactly what happened.
So all I'm saying is that even in an area that is swingy, that doesn't necessitate that you have to be more moderate. You can. I
agree, and that
progressive policies.
I agree, and that's exactly how it played out with Biden. He was. I mean, not exactly in terms of like the exact policies, but Biden ran as kind of more of a moderate. His messaging in 2020 was about like kind of vague calls to expand the middle class and that sort of thing. I mean, but he presented himself as like more moderate. Certainly most people I know were expecting like a very centrist-y type president. And then he was elected, and he had just the slimmest of majorities to work with. It was a bare majority in the House and a 50-50 split in the Senate that Kamala could break ties in. And what did he do? He defied basically everyone's expectations and delivered easily the most progressive policy agenda of my lifetime, by far.
Yeah, in terms of labor, I mean, obviously you can say foreign policy is a different conversation. But I think what I'm wondering about is, what is your main criticism of leftists? Because you've said like leftists need to do a lot of soul searching. The leftists that I know on YouTube, like Vosh, Majority Report, Hassan, they all did criticize Biden because of his campaigning. Like none of them would say it's just enough if you run on progressive policies. You obviously need to campaign and present yourself in an appropriate way, which I think a lot of people had criticisms of Biden on, like he couldn't campaign at all. And then when we talk about Kamala Harris, she also didn't campaign in the most progressive way possible. And given she didn't have a full season to campaign in, but I think a lot of issues were given to her, or she brought a lot of issues upon herself. She didn't really make it easier. So like when you say leftists need to do soul searching and you're watching like Hassan and Vosh, what's your main criticism of them?
My main criticism, well, it depends on who I'm talking to. Like some people I have more of a problem with than others. Like I've seen Vosh have plenty of good takes, so I'm not saying I always disagree with him. Emma Vigeland for me is a bit of a mixed bag. Sam Cedar I largely align with. Kyle Kalinske I think is getting better, but he's certainly, I mean, it just really depends on what the criticism is. If I'm going to give you like a specific example, a lot of the criticism that I hear from leftist spaces in media and social media is that the Democrats don't know how to properly wield power in order to secure big wins. And I'll give you a specific example. So when I had a conversation with Kyle Kalinske, me and Josiah went on his podcast that he does with his wife, Crystal Ball. And he proposed something that I heard over and over and over again early in Biden's presidency. Some people in my chat that I thoroughly disagree with were making these same arguments. The argument was because Joe Manchin was unwilling to support a $15 an hour minimum wage in the ARP, that the proposition that I heard from many leftists, including Hassan, when he recently went on Pod Save America, said the same thing, and John Lovett basically rolled his eyes at him. The proposition was that Joe Biden should have called Merrick Garland into his office, the attorney general at the time, and instructed Merrick Garland to investigate Joe Manchin's family and threaten that family with criminal prosecution unless Joe Manchin supported the $15 an hour minimum wage. That to me is outrageous. It is so
pretty much a watered down version of what Trump's doing right now.
I'm sorry. What do you think Trump is doing right now?
Like Trump is basically using the Justice Department as his own cudgel to be able to get policies done that he wants, like the Eric Adams example where he instructed the Justice Department to drop the charges against Eric Adams because if he's able to lord those charges over Adams' head, then he can get Adams to go along with his immigration policies.
Yeah, totally.
That's basically
completely
what Trump is doing.
Totally corrupt, right? But so far, I have not seen Donald Trump so far. He could change, he's got a lot of time. He's got 4 years to go. So maybe he'll do it in the future. I have not seen him threaten members of his own party with criminal prosecutions if they don't support legislation.
Okay, that seems to kind of be a distinction without a difference. Like he's using the Justice Department.
Okay, just to be clear, just to be clear, you're in favor of this idea that Joe Biden should have threatened Joe Manchin's daughter with criminal prosecution?
No, when did I say that? I'm just making a comparison between what Kyle said and what Trump's doing now.
Well, it sounds like
you're putting words in my mouth.
Well, correct me if I'm just drawing an inference here. It seems logical. It seems like you're sort of. It seems like you were suggesting.
I don't think basically, the Justice Department as a personal tool of the president is a good thing for democracy.
So we agree on that particular critique that I have of like
However,
the leftist.
I think Joe Biden could have used more of his power to influence the senators and the Congress people that were in his term to actually get the policies that he wanted to do done.
Okay,
basically, use the bully pulpit.
Okay, this is so predictable. Like, I was just about to finish your sentence for you. Okay, and then the next thing that you guys say is like that Joe Biden should have used the bully pulpit. I'm so curious what effectiveness you think was possible for Joe Biden to do in West Virginia. Do you know how many points Donald Trump won West Virginia by in 2020?
In 2020?
Yeah.
No, how many?
It was 40 points. And so, okay. and you think that Joe Biden could have done like various like town halls in West Virginia where he was criticizing Joe Manchin for not supporting a $15 an hour minimum wage, and you think that would have convinced Joe Manchin? I don't
necessarily think Joe Biden could have, because he could barely talk, but he could send a surrogate to go campaign. He could
in West Virginia
build up another candidate to threaten Joe Manchin.
Another Democratic candidate in West Virginia?
Yeah. That's exactly what Donald Trump did. Like, is it like if Donald Trump can get candidates that are supplicant to him because he's throwing his weight behind them, then obviously a good orator in the Democratic Party could do the same thing against Democrats that aren't falling in line.
Here's my frustration with you guys, because to me, this is like so like insane. The idea, like, I don't think you properly recognize what an anomaly Joe Manchin is in West Virginia. There's no other Democrat that could have won West Virginia. This idea that Joe Biden could have caused like a more progressive Democrat to primary Joe Manchin and then win in a Senate.
I said more supplicant. If Joe Manchin can win underneath the Democratic ticket, another Democrat can too. Like, obviously, it's not going to be easy, but once again, like, we're just talking about internal party dynamics. You don't think there's any kind of leverage at all that Joe Biden could put on Joe Manchin?
No.
Okay. No. The other thing that I have to talk about.
Wait, hold on. Hold on. I want to explain that. Do you know why I think that?
Because you think Joe Manchin is a special case and he is the only Democrat that could win West Virginia?
No, it's because Joe Manchin took out an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal and literally said, I'm never going to get rid of the filibuster. I'm never going to do it. There's nothing that you can threaten me with. There's no leverage that you have over me. Stop asking me to get rid of the filibuster or do carve-outs. I'm just not going to do it. Here's my frustration with people like you.
The reason you think Joe Biden doesn't have leverage?
Real quick. I just want to finish my point.
Okay,
and then I'll let you talk. I swear to God.
Seemed like that was the end of your point. But.
I swear to God, I'll let you talk, and I won't interrupt you. My frustration with leftists like you is because you'll make this claim. Well, Joe Biden was ineffective because he couldn't get this thing done. And then you'll throw out these suggestions, and your reasoning will be because he couldn't get something done that was impossible to get done. It was impossible for Joe Biden to force Joe Manchin to support, number one, firing the parliamentarian, number two, voting for a $15 an hour minimum wage, and number three, voting to get rid of the filibuster or do carve-outs. It was impossible. You guys don't seem to grasp the concept that some things in politics are just out of reach. And in those cases, you have to fight for every inch that you can get. You have to fight for everything that is possible to get. And if you can't get things that are impossible, I don't think you should hold Democrats to some, or particularly Joe Biden, to some impossible standard that he could not possibly have met. Okay, now you can go.
Okay. No, I think that when you say it's impossible because Joe Manchin's a special case and he said that he wasn't going to do it, I need some more reasoning than that. Like, he was a Democrat, won West Virginia underneath the Democratic ticket. Even if you get someone with the exact same politics as Joe Manchin, if Joe Biden supported them, then maybe they'd be more amenable to voting the way Joe Biden wanted them to.
You need more. you need more of an
maybe I'm being naive and doing like a House of Cards kind of politics.
You need more of an explanation than Joe Manchin coming out and saying, you have nothing to threaten me with. I'm never going to vote for these things.
I would have liked to see Biden try to threaten him. I think that the threat of
threaten him with what?
Primarying someone, the threat of primarying him, trying to get someone else
in West Virginia.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's the threat of that, or even Joe Biden hinting at that, is better than what we got. And you just finished saying, like, Democrats should try to fight for every single thing that they can get.
That's possible.
Why wouldn't Joe Biden
That's
try?
possible.
Yeah, that's possible.
Right. Yeah.
But wouldn't the thing is, if it's a Democratic primary, it's not actually hurting Joe Manchin's chances of winning in the main election. I mean, maybe you can say it is a little bit, but then the other thing you need to think of is that he's getting a lot of popularity due to this like tough primary or whatever.
Okay, what do you do if Joe Manchin says, I don't like all this pressure. I'm declaring myself to be an independent, and there goes your majority in the Senate. And yeah, what do you do then?
I mean, then you're in the exact same position that you were in when he was pretending to be a Democrat, right?
Wait,
like
wait, hold on. What did you just say?
If he says, I don't like you pressuring me in the primary, I'm going to be an independent. Mm-hmm. Are you assuming that changes the way he votes on things? Because he was voting pretty obstinately when he was pretending to be a Democrat.
So for the record, Joe Manchin voted with the Democratic Party and Biden like 93% of the time, just to be clear about that. Yeah. Are you saying that you don't understand the difference between having a Senate majority and not having a Senate majority?
When he's voting for these big acts like the CHIPS bill and like the Green New Deal.
You understand that the CHIPS bill would never have been put to a vote if the Democrats didn't have a majority. You understand that, right? Mitch McConnell would have simply said no.
When they're trying to get Joe Manchin to vote for it, they have to they have to tailor make the bill for him anyway, right?
I'm just having I'm having difficulty wrapping my mind around the concept that you don't understand the difference between having a majority and not. That blows my mind that you can't understand that if Joe Manchin declared that he was an independent, or even worse, if he switched parties and gave a Senate majority to McConnell, which you don't really acknowledge that there was a risk of him doing, but there was, if Biden would have done the things that you're suggesting that he would have done, then you have Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and you get 0 judges confirmed and you get 0 legislation. You don't get any IRA. You don't get the CHIPS and Science Act. You don't get the ARP. You don't get the bipartisan gun bill. You don't get any of that. And you don't seem to grasp that that's like a big deal.
I mean, Joe Manchin at the end of the day is going to vote the way he wants to vote. When you get like the IRA watered down because of his obstinance, then you are losing a lot of actual value and an increase in material conditions.
That's democracy.
Right. That's okay.
Do you believe in democracy, by the way?
Yes, I do believe in democracy.
Okay, because you're not beating the authoritarian allegations here. This is another thing that I think leftists struggle with. Well, it ties into the first thing that I was talking about. Like leftists seem to think that if you want something bad enough, there's going to be a way to get it done, and you just got to bring a sledgehammer to.
I don't think whipping a party in line is authoritarian. Do you think like getting senators to all vote for a bill is authoritarian?
No, but your solution,
even pressuring them to match your politics better.
The reason I think you're not acknowledging like the risk of Manchin switching parties is because it blows up your entire argument, because it proves the point that what you're suggesting would have been counterproductive or destructive. What you're suggesting was stupid. And the risk of losing the control of the Congress was stupid. Would you rather have Biden had spent months and months and months and months and months trying to pressure Joe Manchin in West Virginia? Or would you rather Biden pass the ARP in that form without the $15 an hour minimum wage, which was the largest domestic stimulus bill we ever passed? And then he went on to negotiate like 6 or 7 or 8 other like major pieces of legislation. You're saying he should have just wasted all that time over this one thing.
I don't think it's a waste of time. And the other thing is, we can't say for sure whether it's a good decision or not, because ultimately,
I can say for sure that how Biden spent his time was phenomenal. Like Biden's first 2 years, I give him an A+. The first 2 years, A+, easy.
Okay, but like, because those bills had their legs cut out from underneath them,
that's democracy.
See the Democrats lose an election. So
I don't think the Democrats lost the election because we didn't get a $15 an hour minimum wage in the ARP.
I mean, you can't say that for sure. I think that would have changed a lot of things for people.
No,
you agree this was an extremely close election, right?
Yeah.
Any little tiny thing could have changed it.
I don't think the $15 an hour minimum wage would have changed anything.
Okay. I think it definitely would have changed stuff.
How many people do you think make minimum wage in America? I'm just curious.
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question.
If you had to guess.
Well, there's about 314 million people in America.
330 million.
330.
Mm-hmm. Don't Google it. Like just guess. Just guess.
Million? No, I'm not Googling it.
It's about 2 million people.
2 million? Okay. Wasn't that far off.
Let me just double check my work here.
Okay, so 2 million people, and obviously a minimum wage increase wouldn't just affect the wages of people actually getting minimum wage.
You would have seen like marginal increases, like whatever, but like around the margins,
increases.
But
and then people getting more money or spending more. Other people that are supporting them aren't having to spend that as much money anymore to support them. People living at home could potentially move out. Like, I just don't think it's a good argument to say minimum wage wouldn't have affected anything when Kamala Harris lost this election by 1.5 percentage points. And then just the last thing that I have to say, like, at the end of the day, if a leftist commentator is like, Joe Biden needs to do more stuff to get his party members in line, but they're also saying, and they're also being like, we need to primary all of these Democrats. They're being way too moderate or in the middle. But at the end of the day, they're like, okay, well, the progressive candidate didn't win. We have to support like the, true blue Democrat in the primary. You guys should go vote because lesser of two evils argument. Do you have an issue with a leftist doing that?
No, of course not, because that's pragmatic and smart.
Okay. Were there any leftists online saying like, don't actually vote? I think maybe like the deprogram guys were saying it.
I don't know about people saying don't vote, but there were certainly a lot of leftists that refused to endorse Kamala because of Gaza, which I think was, well, we saw how that played out. Gaza better off now?
I mean, yeah. It's not going to be, but it is at the moment.
My dude.
It literally is. Dude, it literally is. They have a ceasefire right now. Okay. Like, you cannot make the art. Right at this moment, it's better off underneath Donald Trump. That's not saying anything for the future, but I mean, it's not a very strong argument to say, is it better right now? Because
after Donald Trump said they were going to permanently ethnically cleanse Gaza and then absorb it as a U.S. territory, you think it's better?
Oh, yeah, no, Palestine's not going to exist by the end of this 4 terms, but I mean, right now it's better.
My dude.
Okay, where am I wrong?
It's like pulling teeth to get people like you to acknowledge that the outcome was worse because Donald Trump got elected, because you're saying there's
you're saying there's no.
Then why would you point to like, well, it is better off now because of the peace thing?
You said, is it better right now underneath Trump than it is? Is it better now? I'm like, yeah, it literally is. Joe Biden could have gotten that ceasefire done when Hamas agreed to it.
Joe Biden did get that ceasefire done.
When was that? May?
They did the ceasefire in December. That was when
Donald Trump got elected and Netanyahu got his little evil grin and then Trump sent his Middle East envoy over there.
Do you think that? So
I don't think it was his Middle East envoys.
So my contention is that withholding your endorsement for Kamala because of her position on Gaza, it was incredibly idiotic if you actually cared about the situation in Gaza, because Donald Trump was going to be predictably worse, which he was. So that was stupid.
Yeah. Do you think that
it was stupid?
Think that withholding your endorsement is the same as basically being like, don't vote for her and you should stay home and not vote?
No,
because I know that Hassan and Bosch, Hassan explicitly said, I'm not going to endorse Kamala Harris, but you guys should all go out and vote.
It was stupid. He should have endorsed the candidate that would have led to a better outcome. Yes, he should have endorsed it, but it's not the same as telling people not to vote for Kamala. But if you have the privilege of having like an influential platform and you endeavor to do good things or attempt to like influence things in a good direction, then you should advocate for the candidate that's going to bring about the better outcomes. That's why I think it's stupid to withhold your nomination or withhold your endorsement. I'm not saying that like Hassan alone could have changed the trajectory of this election, but if every leftist creator that was withholding, maybe, I don't know, the margins were really short or really small. They certainly didn't help the people of Gaza by withholding their endorsement. They didn't help the people of Gaza by doing that. Let me ask you this. They literally hurt the people of Gaza by doing that, which is amazing because the whole point of them doing that ostensibly was for advocacy for Palestinians, but it's counterproductive.
Yeah, let me ask you this. What are your thoughts on groups that were basically saying, like the Abandon Harris movement, where they're like, you have to, we're not going to endorse you unless you call for a ceasefire?
Leopards eating faces party situation there. It was stupid.
I mean, that's not really a leopards eating faces party. I guess if you voted for Donald Trump, that's a leopards eating faces situation.
No, but there were Arab groups.
That's creating a voter block and using your voting power to actually affect your politicians to try to make them come to your terms.
How'd that work out?
And adopt your policies.
How'd that work out?
It didn't work out. But I'm saying, what's your idea on that? Like overall, you just think that people shouldn't like try to advocate and withhold their votes to get their politicians to change course?
It depends on what you're doing. Like I think there are
right.
I think there are ways that you can pressure politicians, but the second you start doing the thing where you're like, okay, well, I'm just not going to vote for you. Political parties are typically, they're going to look at that and they're going to think, okay, that person's going to be really difficult to persuade. I should probably like target people in the center, which is exactly what the Harris campaign did. So I think there are effective ways of like trying to pressure politicians. And then there are ways that I think are just destructive and you're basically just smashing the chessboard. And I don't think it worked out well for their cause. I think it actively hurt their cause. And so I would say that was stupid.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was stupid. At the end of
I would.
It's kind of an emotional situation.
Yeah,
because
people do emotional. People do
emotionally there.
Right. People do stupid things when they're acting out of emotions. Yeah, that's like human psyche 101. I don't think people should be voting.
It turns out that like the withholding the vote because of Gaza didn't seem to affect the election. Obviously, it could have, but
maybe. Who knows? I don't know.
Anyway, that's all I wanted to talk to you. Oh, the last thing I would say is that it does. If you look up polling of actual progressive policies, like they're overwhelmingly popular. So I don't know if you've heard of that stuff at all.
How come
check that out?
How come leftists aren't doing well then? I mean, why didn't Cori Bush win?
I don't know.
Her race. Why didn't Jamal Bowman win his race? How come like progressives aren't the majority of like the party? If it's just as simple as just promising like popular policies, then how come the progressive wing of this country isn't dominating the Democratic Party? Maybe it's not that simple. Maybe it's more complicated than just promising like Medicare for all and paid family leave. What if there's a lot more complexity and nuance to the current dynamic?
I mean, I don't really understand what you're implying. I've never said that it was as simple as saying, I'm going to give everyone free housing, and then they win elections, and the entire Democratic Party gets taken over by that. Obviously, there's different factors.
I mean, fair enough, but the point I was making before was that it's not enough to promise or even do popular policies that improve people's material conditions. If that was the case, I think Biden wouldn't have had to drop out of the race, and he would have won re-election overwhelmingly, because he did deliver a progressive agenda for the American people. And it wasn't enough. People decided that, grocery prices and him being old were more important, and decided to give power to Donald Trump.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, obviously, you also need to campaign well, and I don't think Biden campaigned well. I don't think Harris really got a chance to campaign that well.
I think Harris did the best.
When you bring up,
I think you don't think that Harris did the best that she could have done in that situation. She had 3 months.
She did. No, this is my position on this. Harris did extremely well. I would say she did a good job. However, because of her circumstances and because of, honestly, like, her demographic and just her being a non-white woman, she had to do exemplary to win, and she just didn't do that.
Okay. You said there was one last thing?
Oh yeah, the last thing that I would say is when I bring up the idea that, like, these progressive policies are popular, and then you say, well, it's not as simple as just offering, like, popular policies. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, I agree, it's not as simple as just, like, writing down your policies on a piece of paper and throwing it at the voter. But when you address me bringing up the popularity of these, it's almost like you're trying to put these policies down rather than be like, okay, these are popular. How can we match this up to the current Democratic Party?
Well, I certainly didn't mean to mischaracterize what you said. I'm glad you clarified. But I think the reason why I reacted the way that I did is because I hear it so often from a lot of leftists is they present things as though it's just as simple as just like, all you got to do is just like promise like these particular policies, like look how popular they are. And I'm saying with the current, like with the way that the American government is structured and the way that our political system works and the way that our like political news kind of like ecosystem works, which now includes social media, which adds a whole other layer of complexity. It's not as simple as just like promising this stuff. But if you're not saying that, okay, then I recant, I take it back. But I don't think it's enough to say like, it's just so simple. It's just so simple. Like, look, 55% of people polled in this poll say that government should ensure healthcare, and 85% of people think that paid family leave should be a thing. Okay, great. Like, opinion polls, honestly, they can be like a good indicator of like where things could possibly go. But beyond that, they're not that useful, in my opinion. Number one, it really depends on how you phrase the question. Like the range of support for a program like Medicare for All is a spectrum that goes from like 35% to like 90%, depending on how you ask the question. So that's first of all. And then second of all, you need overwhelming support for big sweeping policy to pass through the Congress because of the filibuster. So there are these institutional hurdles that serve as obstacles and stuff like this. And so unfortunately, you need more than 55% support or 60% support, or even like 65-70% support. Like, you need more than that. Like, the polls are not as important as the people that are elected to the seats that vote on these issues. Like, you can have a poll where it's like 75% of people want, a public option. But at the end of the day, if the American people don't elect representatives to serve in Congress for them that are willing to vote for those policies, then those opinion polls don't matter.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Well, appreciate your time today. I'm going to head up.
All right. Good talking to you.